Rock on, rock on. My name is Ben Poole, a sports analyst, the host of VC60. Today we're interviewing Ian Nicholas, the gnarly anchor and reporter for the Delmarva Sports Network. Thanks for coming.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I can't wait. Super excited.
I'm excited for the conversation ahead. I appreciate you taking the time this schedule to join me.
Yeah, of course. Super pumped up. I mean, ready to ring in the new year with an awesome interview here.
I have a few questions for you.
Sure. Fire ahead.
What does a day look like for a sports anchor and reporter at Sports Network?
Well, the cool part about working for a sports network is that my day looks different every single time. It is definitely not what you would consider a 9 to 5 job. I mean, today I'm going over to a local gym about 30 minutes away, and I'm getting to connect with the community through one of the best athletic trainers in all of our community and some of the best young athletes in the area. I mean, I hear today that I'm actually talking to an athlete who dominates in their field and does so with only one leg. So I don't know much about the athlete yet, but I'm going to talk to the athlete and I'm going to talk to the trainer, and we're going to figure out how the adversity does not set this athlete back. And those are the stories and really the characters in sports that get me excited to go to work every single day. So I could be doing anything from telling a story as a reporter out in the field through sports, anchoring our local sports coverage from our studio, or calling games, being on the floor or up in the press box for big high school and college games in our area. So I'm super fortunate that we get to do a lot of different things at Delmarva Sports Network.
It sounds like you interview a lot of cool people.
Yeah, I mean, just last month I got to kind of live out a dream of mine and cover an NFL game. And the NFL and specifically the New York Giants, which great timing. They just made a huge hire getting the former Ravens head coach John Harbaugh. I'm excited about that. But I actually got to cover a game in which John Harbaugh was coaching in just last month for Delmarva Sports Network when the Ravens hosted the New England Patriots for Sunday Night Football, and that was really cool. Kind of a full circle moment. I remember going up into the press box where all the local and even some national journalists were covering the game, and one of them came up to me and said, "Do you remember who I am?" And it was this guy named Mike Reese, who's actually the ESPN New England Patriots beat reporter. And a few years before, I had met Mike and had the chance to talk to him one on one when I was covering games for summer collegiate baseball team out on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. So after the game, Mike and I got to be in the same room interviewing people like John Harbaugh, Kyle Hamilton, who's one of the best players in the NFL. I got to see Lamar Jackson, guys like DeAndre Hopkins up close and personal. And that was my first time being in an environment that big and being a professional and getting paid to be there. So you definitely bump into, and then like you said, actually get the chance to pick the brain of some really cool people and some really important people in the sports world.
My day is always busy with lots of fun interviews with play-on-plays, broadcasters, and puppeteers.
That's cool.
How did you get started on the radio for WJPZ?
WJPZ, what a great question. Well, that was one of the stations that I was told before I went to Syracuse University. I just graduated from Syracuse last spring, and I was told before I went to Syracuse that WJPZ was one of the radio stations that I needed to be a part of if I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So I, went into the station. I went to their intro meetings my freshman year. I actually, even though I ended up doing mostly sports for JPZ, I ended up doing a little bit of everything for them at the beginning. Me and my roommate of 4 years in college hosted a DJ shift. We had to get cleared to host a DJ shift where we could talk about whatever we wanted. It was a top 40 radio station. So, we would be going from spinning a Taylor Swift song on the air to hopping into a break in between songs. And we would just be talking sports because, it was a student run TV station. There wasn't a lot of pressure. It wasn't like we had the whole world listening to us in that moment, but it was fun and it got our feet wet and we got comfortable having fun on the air together. And eventually I got cleared to do work for their sports department. And for the next 2, 3 years, I was consistently covering some really good teams like the Syracuse women's basketball team, who, made it to the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago, or the Syracuse women's lacrosse team, who I'm sure not a lot of people are familiar with them, but they are consistently a top 5, top 10 team in the country. And I got to go on the road to places like North Carolina and Florida and Massachusetts and all these fun places to cover their games. And JPZ covered the cost for the travel, which is crazy. We were super fortunate to be a part of that organization in college. So there's a reason why they called it the party station. It was always a lot of fun when we were on the air for them.
Darling, how I got started was looking at different puppet shows on TV, Hornets basketball, and I knew I wanted to be a puppeteer/broadcaster.
Did you say the Hornets basketball team?
I did.
Yeah, they're fun, right? Their commentator Eric Collins. I don't know if you're a fan of him, but he is a cool personality.
I am a fan.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. He actually, of course, if I'm on here, I gotta rep my school, Syracuse. Eric Collins is a Syracuse alum.
And rock on. And tell me more about the Little League Classic and what do you like about being a play-by-play.
Yeah, of course. The Little League Classic feels like ancient history for me now because I'm so washed. But I did a broadcasting camp in high school right after I figured out that I loved broadcasting. This was right around my freshman year of high school. We actually had a class devoted to broadcasting at my high school, which I was super fortunate that I went to a high school that had that kind of resource to have a TV broadcasting class that I could take on a daily basis. And through my teacher, I got to know this guy named Bruce Beck, who is a sports anchor in New York City, obviously the biggest sports market in the world for NBC4 New York. And he had a summer broadcasting camp. He still does it every summer. And for 1 week, you get to go to his camp and really learn the ins and outs of broadcasting, everything from play by play to, reporting and anchoring. And he brings in a bunch of cool people, athletes, and broadcasters to kind of cultivate your love for broadcasting. It certainly worked for me. And through that camp, I did it for 4 years in high school. I got the opportunity. Bruce got a connection with ESPN, who broadcasts the Little League World Series, and they started this new alternative series called the Kids Cast, where they had kids who did the camp anchor live coverage of games at the Little League World Series. And I got really spoiled because the year that I got selected, fortunately, to do it, we didn't just broadcast a Little League World Series game with huge implications on the line. It was an elimination game, so that was fun. But the night before, we broadcasted, like you said, an MLB game, the Little League Classic, which is a game that's played every year in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And in my year, unfortunately, the two teams weren't very good. It was the Angels and it was the Cleveland Guardians. But you know who was on the Angels at the time? Shohei Ohtani. So that was awesome. I actually got to interview Shohei live on the air in his own dugout. We did a FaceTime interview on our Sunday Night Baseball alternate broadcast with Shohei Ohtani. So that was really cool. I knew after that, I loved play-by-play. I mean, I think I already knew that, but after getting to do it at the highest level for a couple of nights and really see how much manpower and how special those big broadcasts are, that was the moment where I was like, yeah, I got to keep doing this. And I want to try to get back here legitimately, not as a kids caster, but as, a professional broadcaster. So that's what we're working on right now. And I can't wait to hopefully get there someday.
Awesome. It sounds like you're doing a lot of good stuff and interviewing a lot of good people.
Totally. And that's what it really is all about. And maybe that will sound a little corny, but it really is all about the people that you're with. And that's the cool part about my job right now at Delmarva Sports Network. I didn't know where Salisbury, Maryland was on a map before I moved down here. I had heard about one former kid who I went to school with who had worked down here previously. I talked to him. He said it was a great opportunity and an invaluable experience. And you know what? I said, sure. How about I interview for this job? And fortunately, I got this job, last summer. And, I work here with, I think, somebody you might have already talked to, and Tyler Aiken. And, Tyler's a great guy too. And I went to Syracuse with him, and him and I have just had so much fun down here, getting to know the people of his community who love sports, and I love sports. So obviously that makes my job a lot easier. But even the people who we work with at DSN, they're all young. They all have the same goals that you and I have of being in this field and loving sports and talking about it all day, every day. It feels like I didn't even leave college. These people are like legitimately good friends of mine. So it's been a lot of fun. It hasn't felt like work. I mean, sometimes it feels like work, and I'm sure you can feel the same way. You put in a lot of work to make sure that what we do sounds good for the people that watch and listen. But at the end of the day, we're all just talking sports and having fun. So still doing that here at DSN.
I think that's pretty cool what you're doing. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me for Harry. It's a pleasure to speak with you, hear insights, your stories, perspective, smart, agreeable, opportunity to learn from you.
Of course, and right back at you. Keep doing what you're doing, and maybe we'll do it again sometime. But thank you so much.
Rock on, rock on. That's the end of my show. See you soon, everyone.